Ever wondered what would happen if Earth suddenly got airdropped into a fantasy apocalypse? Not just dragons in the sky and monsters in your backyard, but magic, dimensions, timelines, and entire civilizations slamming together like a galactic car crash. No warning, no pause button, just bam. Humans wake up one morning and the conjunction of the spheres is happening again. But this time, it's not the 11th century. It's now, and the modern world isn't ready. Let's break down what that would look like. Not the Hollywood version, the terrifying, logical, science meets sorcery version. The one where physicists panic, governments collapse, and suburban families are suddenly dealing with elves, interdimensional contamination, and a rift in the laws of reality. Because when dimensions overlap, reality bends. Civilization breaks, and survival becomes speculative fiction. In Witcher lore, the conjunction of the spheres was this cosmic accident, a glitch in the multiverse where different realities smashed together. Monsters, magic, and non-human races flooded into a world that wasn't theirs. Sound cool? It wasn't. It was the fantasy version of a biological, magical, and ontological invasion. Now imagine it's happening again, but now. Not in a pre-industrial society that has time to adapt. Nope. Right now, TikTok is still open. Stock markets are still running. And suddenly your Alexa starts speaking in elder speech. You think our world runs on logic and laws of physics? The conjunction would laugh at that. In an instant, the rules change. Gravity fluctuates. Electromagnetic fields warp. GPS systems fail. And that's just on day one. Governments wouldn't even have time to cover it up. Planes fall from the sky. Satellites go dark. And somewhere in the suburbs, a man walks outside with his coffee mug and gets vaporized by a rift elemental made of pure entropy. This isn't a movie. This is dimensional contamination at a planetary scale. Everyone thinks magic would be awesome. Teleportation, fireballs, healing spells. Nope. Magic in this world will be classified as a biohazard before you could say abracadabra. Here's the issue. Magic is energy that defies physics. You introduce that to our world, and suddenly, nuclear power plants aren't the scariest energy sources anymore. Entire cities could become mana hotspots, unpredictable zones where time loops, mutation rates skyrocket, or consciousnesses swap bodies. And don't even think about the biological implications. Magic-altered bacteria, magical viruses. If a single spore from a fungal mage tree ends up in a water system, congratulations. You've got arcane cholera. The CDC would be hopelessly outgunned. Who would be scrambling to update disease classifications from Category 5 to Category Uncle. Assifiable. And yes, someone would try to monetize it within 24 hours. You just know there's a crypto bro trying to sell spell coin before the second portal even stabilizes. The last time the conjunction happened, monsters didn't come crawling out of our swamps. They fell from alien ecosystems. Places with zero biological connection to ours. Think about that. Now, imagine that rift beast from a starless realm that lives in negative temperature plasma just dropped into Detroit. We couldn't even see some of them. Infrared, useless. UV, irrelevant. They exist on wavelengths our eyes weren't built to process. Worse, they don't die the way animals do. You can't just shoot a less hen. You burn its forest. You don't stab a drowner. You drain the lake. Every creature from another sphere comes with its own ecological rulebook, and none of those rules care about bullets, tanks, or drone strikes. We would need monster slayers, but you can't train witchers in a week. And even if we could, that's assuming the monster stays solid. Some don't. Some are fog, or sound, or memory. What happens when something that feeds on grief sets up shop in a trauma ward? Let's be real. It wouldn't take long for everything to fall apart. First comes infrastructure failure. Massive blackouts, downed satellites, disrupted comms. Airports become graveyards for grounded planes. Traffic systems short-circuit. Then comes mass panic. Not just because monsters are attacking, but because people can't explain it. Every live stream, every TikTok, every news broadcast only makes it worse. And then, misinformation takes over. conspiracy theories would multiply faster than necrophages in a battlefield. The portals are caused by 5G. It's CERN's fault. It's climate change. This is Earth's immune response. Politicians would either weaponize the event or go full bunker mode. Martial law, guaranteed, but it won't matter. The real threat is this. The world is now overlapping with other worlds. And some of those other worlds might already have sentient civilizations. Some friendly, some deeply not elves, dwarves, dryads, mages. Not all of them are monsters. Some are just refugees. But in a world where immigration still sparks outrage, you think humanity is going to welcome magical humanoids with open arms? Let's not kid ourselves. This would be an existential identity crisis for every nation, culture, and religion on the planet. Who's a citizen? Who gets rights? Are elves even considered people under the Geneva Convention? And then you've got knowledge gaps. These races have their own histories, languages, technologies, some possibly superior to ours. Who owns the tech from another dimension? Can a mage from Ainside vote in a NATO summit? This isn't cultural exchange. It's first contact under duress. And we have no prime directive. The worst part? The conjunction doesn't just mess with space, it messes with time. Temporal bleeding is a real possibility. Hours pass differently in overlapping zones. You leave a forest at 3 p.m., you get home, and it's suddenly 1997 or 2031. A child goes missing in a park, shows up in Brazil 13 seconds later with frostbite and an ancient sword. Your phone might ring with your own voice on the other end. From tomorrow or yesterday, governments would try to quarantine these time-scrambled zones. Scientists would go insane, try to model them. And somewhere in Geneva, a quantum physicist would just stare at a coffee cup floating sideways and quietly resign. The truth is, we wouldn't be able to stop it. The conjunction isn't a war. It's not a plague. It's not even a choice. It's a collision of realities. And we're caught in the crossfire. Some would try to fight. Some would try to flee. Most, they just try to survive. And somewhere, maybe a new kind of hero emerges. Not from prophecy or destiny, but from desperation. A hybrid of science and sorcery. The first modern witcher, wielding steel in one hand and a Geiger counter in the other.
Let's say we survive the initial shock, the monster sightings, the energy distortions, the magical outbreaks. The world doesn't end in a fireball on day one, but that doesn't mean we're safe. It means we've entered phase 2, the collapse of the systems that keep modern civilization running. Because the real danger isn't just the creatures or the spells. It's that the foundations of our global society, infrastructure, communication, science, law, even belief, can't function when the rules of the universe are suddenly optional. Think about cities. Skyscrapers were built assuming a stable gravitational constant. What happens when mana surges in the atmosphere change gravity by just 3% in a single district? Elevators fail. Foundations crack. Water pressure becomes unpredictable. 1 minute, you're brushing your teeth. The next, your bathroom mirror becomes a window to another dimension, and something on the other side blinks. Public utilities, designed for a stable reality, begin to collapse. Internet outages are constant. Electrical grids short out every time a ley line shifts. And when the stars themselves start misaligning, even GPS satellites become useless. Planes can't navigate. Cargo ships drift off course. Food supply chains break in a week. Money loses value almost overnight. Not because the banks fail, although they will, but because currencies require a shared reality. If one region is experiencing time loops and another is being overrun by arachnid wraiths, good luck agreeing on the value of a dollar. The global economy doesn't crash, it evaporates. Barter systems return. Gold, water, ammo, batteries, anything tangible becomes currency. In some places, mana crystals are more valuable than real estate. But that's just the economic layer. Let's zoom in on people. The psychology of a global population forced to confront the impossible. Imagine being a child who grows you, watching cartoons and playing Minecraft. And then, overnight, You're taught that magic is real, monsters exist, and your dog might be a changeling. PTSD becomes pandemic. Suicide rates spike. Religious institutions fracture. Some double down. This is divine judgment. Others adapt, rewriting doctrine in real time. Entire new cults emerge, preaching that the spheres must be worshipped or that portals are sacred gates to enlightenment. Some go full nihilist. Nothing is real, so nothing matters. And others? They start organizing. This is where militias and warlords rise. In collapsed zones, especially where governments vanish overnight, armed groups fill the void. Some are survivalists, protecting communities. Others are exploiters, raiders, slavers, monster hunters for hire, or worse, mage worshippers who treat arcane power like a divine right. In a fractured world, violence becomes local currency. And if one of these groups gets their hands on a functional spellbook or ascension relic, they become a regional superpower overnight. Meanwhile, science faces its own crisis. Everything we know is built on consistent rules. But now those rules keep changing. In laboratories, constants become variables. Experiments yield different results depending on the moon cycle or the emotional state of the person running them. Peer review is impossible when two scientists running the same test end up in different decades. Eventually, many give up on the scientific method altogether. A new field emerges, arcane physics, blending quantum mechanics with sorcery. Some embrace it, others denounce it as pseudoscience. But in the chaos, one thing is clear. Human understanding has hit a wall. We are no longer the masters of our world. And yet, some people thrive. Opportunists, hackers, rogue mages, those who don't rely on order. Magic marketplaces pop up in the dark web. Forbidden tomes leak through encrypted portals. Entire black markets form around spell components, monster organs, even human memories harvested and sold like NFTs. It becomes a digital Wild West, with ancient curses being traded over VPNs and eldritch viruses crashing cloud servers. Somewhere out there, someone has already made an app that lets you detect portal activity within 100 meters, and it's pay to unlock. But perhaps the most terrifying development isn't the monsters or magic. It's the arrival of civilizations from the other spheres. Entire cities materialize, cut off from their worlds, dropped into ours. Some are empty ruins. Others are alive. Alien governments, non-human empires, elven monarchies, and warlike Orcish clans. Some try to parley. Others declare war. Earth is no longer one planet. It's now a patchwork of overlapping territories, each with its own laws, armies, and magical physics. Diplomacy becomes survival. Every meeting between factions is a coin toss between alliance and annihilation. And amid all this chaos, new types of humans begin to emerge. Some born after the conjunction, others changed by it. Children with glowing veins and impossible memories. Soldiers who survive death. Doctors who heal with touch alone. Are they miracles or time bombs? Some nations draft them, others imprison them. The lines between human and not human blur. The age of Homo sapiens ends, not with extinction, but with mutation. We become something else. Oh, now ask yourself, would you survive this world? Would you adapt? Would you break? Or would you evolve? Because the conjunction doesn't just reshape the world, it rewrites what it means to be human. By now, the world as we knew it is gone. Governments have fractured. Science is staggering under the weight of magic. Monsters roam freely. And ancient civilizations from other realms have claimed slices of our Earth. But chaos doesn't last forever. Something always fills the vacuum. Out of the wreckage, new powers rise. Not necessarily better ones, just better at surviving in a world where reality itself is unstable. This is the age of new orders. Empires, syndicates, magical guilds, and post-human alliances that redefine the future of civilization. First, let's talk about what's left of the old world. Some governments manage to survive, barely. The ones with underground bunkers, hardened infrastructure, and early access to magical data hold on. But they're no longer nations in the traditional sense. They're arcane technocracies, military enclaves run by generals and scientists, half of whom now answer to mages. In the US, imagine NORAD merging with Silicon Valley and a coven of warlocks. In China, the party fuses statecraft with spellcraft. In Russia, a new tsardom, backed by ice sorcerers and summoned wraith regiments. These states don't rule by ideology anymore. They rule by control of ley lines, portal nodes, and the new energy grid. Magic, but they aren't the only players. The real power now lies in the hands of the arcane syndicates, unregulated magical factions that emerged when governments failed. Some started as mage collectives. Others began as cults. Now, they're megacorporation meets mage cabals. They control black markets, trade routes, forbidden knowledge. You want a spell that freezes time for 5 seconds? You go through them. You want a monster heart stabilized in void iron? They got a warehouse full. They're ruthless, wealthy, and everywhere. Some wear suits. Others wear robes. Doesn't matter. They're the ones setting the rules now. Meanwhile, odds of new professionals emerge. Not lawyers or bankers. Those are obsolete. We're talking reality engineers, rune coders, dimensional cartographers, and beast hunters. These aren't mythological figures. They're licensed professionals. If your city has a temporal bleed, you call a chronomancer to anchor the timeline. If a basilisk moves into your subway system, that's a class 4 contract for a bonded slayer. Insurance companies go extinct. Instead, you buy magical protection circles key to your blood signature. The middle class doesn't own cars anymore. They lease golems. And then there's the cults of spheres. As the world unravels, faith doesn't just resurge, it mutates. These cults aren't waiting for the end times. They believe the conjunction is salvation. Some worship the spheres themselves as divine entities. Others worship the monsters, or the portals, or the magic itself. Entire cities fall under their rule. In some places, these cults are the government. In others, they're terrorist cells summoning abominations in abandoned subway tunnels. They don't want the old world back. They want the new world to finish what it started. On the fringe of all this, we find the post-human enclaves. Not nations, not religions, something else entirely. These are the people who have been altered by exposure to magic, interdimensional contact, or hybrid births. Some look human, others don't, but they're the next step. They speak languages no one taught them. They remember past lives that never happened. They float objects when angry. They grow bone instead of hair. The world calls them mutants, but they call themselves woken. And they are organizing, but it's not just Earth that's changing. The other worlds, the ones that collided with ours, they're bleeding into us too. And vice versa. Forests from Maine's side now grow in Oregon. Rivers from another sphere now run through the Amazon. In some areas, Earth has been fully terraformed by accident. The creatures that live there, they've adapted faster than we have. Some humans go feral, others integrate. There are places now, entire zones, where stepping in is a one-way trip. Maps have to be rewritten weekly. You might take the subway and end up in a glass desert that was Brooklyn, or a jungle made of stone wolves where Chicago used to be. Military strategy becomes obsolete. Borders mean nothing. Wars are no longer about land. They're about control over reality. Factions now fight for ley line intersections, stable time pockets, or access to portal gates. A single arcane relic can shift the balance of an entire war. A cursed artifact might paralyze satellites across a continent. A spellbound plague could turn entire cities into crystal. And in the middle of all this, someone, somewhere, is trying to build a map of the multiverse. You see, not everyone is trying to survive. Someone understand. They believe the conjunction wasn't random, that it's part of a cycle, that this has happened before. Maybe not to Earth, but to other worlds, other civilizations. And if that's true, then there's a pattern. And if there's a pattern, there's a way to predict what comes next. Because here's the scariest possibility of all. What if the conjunction of the spheres was just phase 1? At first, Everyone assumed the conjunction was a freak accident, a cosmic collision of realities, like tectonic plates grinding in the dark. But as time passed and the chaos settled into strange new patterns, one terrifying possibility began to surface. What if this wasn't random at all? What if this has happened before and will happen again? A cycle, a system, something far bigger than us, treating Earth not as a sanctuary, but as a junction point, a place that was never stable to begin with, just a way station between realities. And now, the gate is wide open, the clues start small. Recurring phenomena, portal surges that happen at precise intervals, dimensional overlaps that follow lunar patterns, but not our moon. A second gravitational rhythm hiding in the background noise of reality. Temporal distortions that pulse, not randomly, but rhythmically, like a heartbeat. At first, scientists thought they were grasping at patterns. But then came the artifacts, items that didn't just come from other realms, but knew about ours. Books written in dead languages that described Earth in alarming detail. Maps of star systems that include Earth as a known node. One relic, when decrypted, revealed planetary coordinates for a dozen worlds. Are circled in red. That's when the theory surfaced. The conjunction isn't a mistake. It's a harvest. Earth is a crossing point, a fixed node in a multidimensional network. Every few thousand years, the network activates and the spheres align. Not to share knowledge, not to build bridges, but to cull, absorb, and reset. A cosmic event meant to reboot reality by smashing it into other versions of itself. The chaos we're seeing now, it's not the worst-case scenario. It's the intended function. Suddenly, ancient ruins all over Earth start making sense. Monuments that never fit local geology. Pyramids aligned with stars that haven't existed in OU. Our sky for millennia. Cave paintings of creatures not found in any fossil record. Entire forgotten cities that match the architecture of now visible alien realms. It's not conspiracy, it's memory. Humanity has lived through previous conjunctions. But we forgot, or we were made to forget. Civilizations that couldn't adapt were erased, rewritten, folded into new timelines and cultures. Atlantis? Maybe not a myth. Maybe a previous Earth, overwritten during the last cycle. The real danger, then, isn't just what's invading now. It's what might still be coming. Because if this is a scheduled event, if we're just in the opening chapters, then what follows could be even worse. We've seen monsters, magical corruption, collapsing physics. But what about predators that feed on convergence itself? Civilizations that have evolved not despite the conjunction, but because of it. Creatures that ride the multiverse like nomads, surfing from dimension to dimension during the chaos, consuming whatever survives. Not beasts, not races, but concepts, entities that eat identity, memory, probability. You don't see them coming. You just stop existing. Or worse, you exist everywhere, all at once, in 1,000 contradictory forms. Whispers start circulating about the architects, a name pulled from overlapping myths, always describing faceless beings who arrive at the height of convergence, offering knowledge and demanding obedience. In one realm, they were gods. In another, data constructs. In ours, nothing yet. But some people claim to have seen them in dreams, in glitches, in the eyes of people who've been too close to the heart of a portal. They leave no footprint, just ideas. Ideas that infect minds like malware. A mathematician solves a formula she didn't write. A child speaks in ancient code. A mural paints itself. Across the world, something is preparing us. And still, the world tries to adapt. Underground facilities build dimensional shields. Early prototypes meant to repel or isolate entire sectors of space. Some work, most don't. Arcane AI is developed. Sentient programs that can interface with unstable physics and cast spells faster than human mages. Cities are moved, literally relocated to anchor points where reality is firmer. The Vatican releases its black archives. CERN becomes a militarized zone. Old bloodlines rise from hiding. claiming to have lived through the previous cycles, offering knowledge in exchange for power. Some nations listen, others laugh, right before vanishing from the map in a spiral of anti-light. Then comes the moment no one can explain. A second sun appears in the sky, just for an hour, then vanishes. But in that hour, dozens of spheres realign, and the laws of time break. People live entire lives in a single minute. Others are erased from birth records. Your neighbor's house becomes a medieval observatory, complete with astronomers who swear they've always lived there. Governments stop denying. The UN is dissolved. In its place, the Accord of the Surviving Realms, a coalition of human and non-human factions working not to fight the conjunction, but to understand it. They come to a chilling conclusion. Earth isn't being invaded. It's being weighed, measured, scanned. Every action, every adaptation, every death, it's data, input, a test. And if we pass, maybe we survive, maybe we ascend. But if we fail, we don't go extinct. We get rewritten, like the others before you S.So now. The question isn't, can we survive the conjunction? It's why is it happening, and who's watching? The moment humanity realized the conjunction wasn't just an accident, but part of a cosmic system, something shifted. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was awareness, a global, collective instinct that our world had been asleep, drifting through the cosmos without ever realizing it was part of something bigger. And now, the veil was lifting. Earth was waking up, but with awakening comes pain and transformation. Our planet begins to change. Not metaphorically, but biologically. Ecosystems mutate, not just from external contamination, but from response. Trees that once filter carbon now start pulling in ambient mana. Ocean currents shift as water itself becomes partially sentient in some zones. Mountain ranges vibrate with deep harmonic frequencies that hadn't existed before, resonating like tuning forks with the energies of the other spheres. Some geologists now argue that the Earth is reactivating ancient systems, like forgotten software booting back up after eons of dormancy. And in the middle of this awakening, humans begin to change too. Not just physically, but cognitively. People start seeing patterns that shouldn't exist. Children draw impossible geometries that somehow match the architecture of long-lost alien cities. Mathematicians dream of numbers that can't be graphed. Some individuals wake up fluent in languages no one has spoken in thousands of years, and some that were never spoken on Earth at all. We call them the touched. Some believe they're chosen, others cursed, but there's no denying what they represent. A bridge between humanity and something else. This triggers the rise of dream cultivation centers. Facilities, some government, others rogue, designed to monitor, record, and harvest the visions of those exposed to interdimensional influence. Because dreams are no longer random. They're broadcasts, warnings, echoes, and sometimes invitations. They're AR. These stories of people vanishing mid-dream, physically pulled into other realms while they sleep. Others come back with scars they didn't have, memories they shouldn't remember. One man claims to have lived 300 years in a desert made of glass, serving in an empire of silence. He returned 5 minutes after falling asleep, blind but fluent in 7 alien dialects. But not all awakenings are subtle. In regions with high convergence activity, we start seeing mass events, what the media calls reality storms. Sudden flare-ups of instability where physics bends, timelines overlap, and entire neighborhoods shift into temporary versions of themselves. A quiet suburb becomes a floating island in the clouds for 7 minutes. A train arrives at a station 3 hours before it departed. A woman gives birth to twins, one human, one scaled and bioluminescent. People begin to accept a terrifying truth. The Earth is now part of the convergent ecosystem. It is not an isolated world anymore. It is connected. And as this connection deepens, a new force enters the stage, the emissaries. They arrive not in ships, but in visions, in burning glyphs, in encoded patterns on your screen. They're not a species, not a government. They are allegedly the messengers of the system behind the conjunction. No fixed appearance, no shared language. They interface with each being differently, adapting to belief, biology, and location. To one, they appear as ancient gods. To another, as holograms. To a third, just as a voice in the wind. But their message is always the same. Prepare. Integration is coming. That word, integration, becomes the obsession of every scholar, mage, and world leader left standing. What does it mean? Is Earth being added to a network? A hierarchy? A machine? Or something worse? Something we can't even categorize yet? Some believe integration is enlightenment. Others believe it's extinction disguised as evolution. The emissaries don't clarify. They only offer fragments, knowledge in exchange for choices. Sometimes it's a spell. Sometimes it's a map. Once, it was the complete genetic sequence of a being that hasn't existed in any known universe. And yet, amid the fear and awe, humanity does what it's always done. It adapts. Universities rebrand into multiversal institutes. Cities float, reshape, blink in and out of phase, but life continues. Schools teach magical ethics alongside physics. Children learn to cast basic stabilization spells before they learn algebra. Artists create impossible structures that bend dimensions like paint. Farmers grow hybrid crops designed to survive 3 realms worth of weather. A new global culture is forming, not bound by history, but by experience. The shared trauma and shared transformation. But with progress comes resistance. Not everyone wants to be integrated. Some fear that the more we adapt, the more we lose what it meant to be who. Man, movements rise, the purists who reject magic, alien tech, and dimensional change. They live in quarantine zones, protected by dampening fields, preaching that Earth must reclaim its original form. Conflicts spark, not between nations anymore, but between worldviews, between those who embrace what's coming and those who fear it, because the next phase is no longer hypothetical. It's on the horizon. The spheres are realigning again, sooner than anyone predicted. Time, already unstable, is accelerating. The Earth is being drawn towards something. And now, the question isn't whether we survive the next phase. It's whether we're ready to become something else entirely. Because this is no longer a question of monsters, magic, or collapsed. It's a question of identity. Time is no longer linear. Not really. We still act like it is, scheduling meetings, counting days, tracking rotations, but deep down we know something is broken. Moments repeat. Cause and effect blur. Some cities are trapped in repeating loops, reliving the same day while the rest of the world moves on. A boy in Argentina ages 10 years overnight. Meanwhile, in Berlin, a woman has remained exactly 27 years old for the past 3 decades. Earth is no longer just moving through time. It's being tested by it. The emissaries stop being passive. They begin issuing directives. Some are subtle, encoded riddles in dreams, or etched into the architecture of newly formed hybrid cities. Others are not. A mountain in Nepal collapses overnight, revealing a vault of unknown origin. Inside, a pulsating monolith broadcasting in pure thought, offering coordinates, instructions, threats. The message is clear. Earth is being evaluated. This is the trial, a stage in the integration process that determines whether a realm is added to the network or discarded. Discarded. The word alone terrifies every living thing with a mind. Because by now, we've seen what discarding looks like. Sphere fragments, worlds that failed their own trials, drift through the multiverse, broken, hollowed out. Ghost planets with no stars. Realms where every decision looped into oblivion. Places where the laws of nature collapsed and rebuilt themselves wrong. They become warnings, glimpses of what happens when integration goes wrong. Or worse, when the system chooses not to save you. And still, Earth resists judgment. It fights, questions, adapts. New technologies emerge. Not just fusions of science and magic, but something stranger. A blend of intent and interface. devices that run on emotion, shield powered by shared memory, AI that doesn't learn but dreams. One global project, codenamed Myriad, attempts to digitize entire consciousnesses to store them outside time, creating backups of humanity just in case the physical world doesn't make it. Another, more controversial effort, known only as Mirrorfall, seeks to create a synthetic Earth, one that could pass the trial even if the original doesn't. This leads to the most painful question yet. Is survival the same as being real? Because now identity isn't static. It's fluid, multidimensional. Some people begin splitting, versions of themselves living in different timelines, different spheres, tethered by memory, but no longer bound by linearity. Governments try to track these versions. But how do you police someone whose other self already made a different decision in a separate reality? How do you execute someone who already died last week and is also yet to be born? As panic rises, a strange phenomenon begins to appear. Anchors. People, places, and moments that stabilize the chaos around them. No one knows why. A bakery in Morocco that never shifts, no matter how many storms roll through. A child in Tokyo who cannot be duplicated, no matter how fractured time becomes. These anchors become sacred, protected, studied, even worshipped. Some believe they're Earth's defense mechanisms. Others believe they're the system's surveillance tools. Either way, their presence means one thing. The final stage of the trial is near. And then the sky breaks, not metaphorically, literally. For 7 minutes, the atmosphere cracks like glass, revealing the multiverse beyond it. Layered realities like stained glass windows, turning in slow, mechanical rhythm. And behind them, something bigger, something ancient. The source, not a god, not intelligence, just design. The engine, the original architecture of the spheres, still turning, still spinning, as if none of this matters. As if we're just another flicker in its cycle. But here's where everything changes. Earth responds. All over the world, humanity starts dreaming the same dream. A single unified vision of Earth, not broken, not conquered, but evolved. A version of our planet where magic and science have become indistinguishable. Where cities float, forests sing, and people live across dimensions without losing themselves. And more importantly, in this vision, we pass. The trial ends. Integration succeeds. And Earth becomes something new. Not an empire, not a vassal, but a bridge world, a nexus between spheres. A place where different realms meet, merge, and coexist. The vision fades. And then the message comes. One sentence, burned into the sky across every continent. Your potential has been seen. It's not a victory. Not yet. But it's a reprieve. A final test is coming. Something biggie. Are they a monster, or a spell, or a collapsing timeline? A convergence of everything. Magic, science, will, memory, time, fear, and hope. The last filter. The final gate. Earth has survived collapse, corruption, invasion, and identity death. Now it must survive choice. The world holds its breath. For the first time since the conjunction began, there is silence. No portal storms, no dimensional bleed, no new species crawling out of fractured ley lines. Just a stillness that feels unnatural, as if Earth itself is waiting, heart frozen mid-beat for the final verdict. But no one knows what form the test will take. No instructions, no countdown, just a question that hangs in the air. Are we ready to choose what we become? It's not a battle. Not a war. It's a moment. Across the world, people begin to feel it. A pull of presence like gravity but smarter. Not down but inward, toward the self. One by one, the touched, the dreamers, the gifted, the altered begin to converge. Not physically, but through a web of awareness. Their minds synchronize, not in language, but in resonance. They call it the harmonic calling, a signal that hums beneath thought, guiding those attuned to the conjunction's rhythm towards something vast, buried deep within Earth's structure, that it's not a place. It's a decision. They find it not under a mountain or inside a portal, but at the center of possibility. A metaphysical construct made from Earth's accumulated experience. Every sacrifice, every adaptation, every moment of wonder and fear since the spheres began colliding. It's called the threshold, and it's alive. The threshold doesn't speak. It shows visions of other worlds, some thriving, others erased. Timelines where Earth chose fear and locked itself away, or let itself be ruled, or tried to conquer in return. Every path leads to ruin, except one. Coexistence, not dominance, not surrender, but the willingness to be changed and to change others without destruction. To become the bridge, the choice is terrifying, because to accept it means rewriting what it means to be human. To dissolve borders, not just geopolitical but metaphysical. To allow Earth to become a multiversal ground zero, a meeting place, a hub, not the center of the universe, but the crossroads. And here's the twist. Everyone is part of the choice. Not just leaders, or the touched, or the emissaries. Every mind contributes to the vote, consciously or not. Every moment of compassion, curiosity, hatred, or fear adds weight. The conjunction was never just a collision. It was a question posed to Earth's collective soul. And in the end, the answer is yes. The Earth chooses to open. It begins slowly. The sky bends, not shattering, not breaking, but unfolding. One by one, the spheres realign, not in chaos, but in harmony. Bridges form between realities, living conduits of magic, thought, light, and logic. Cities become multidimensional. Languages evolve overnight. Every human now carries a spark, an awareness of being part of something greater, without losing the self. The architects, those beings watching from beyond, do not invade. They bow, and then they vanish, their role complete. The emissaries become guides, helping species and civilizations navigate coexistence. The conjunction is no longer a disaster. It is a cycle of renewal, a ritual of connection, a cosmic internet built from life. And Earth becomes legend, that no longer a backwater realm barely surviving its own mistakes, but a beacon, a nexus, a world where contradictions live together, where science is magic and logic is faith, where identity doesn't collapse, it expands, where a kid in Nairobi casts a gravitational inversion spell before soccer practice, and a grandmother in Istanbul teaches celestial navigation to sentient birds from a sky fractional realm. But perhaps most important of all, the Earth remembers that IT remembers how close it came to erasure. It remembers the cost of division, fear, arrogance. And so, it watches over other newborn convergence points, guiding, warning, helping. It becomes the elder sibling in a multiverse full of fragile worlds just waking up. Because the conjunction never really ends. It only evolves. And Earth is no longer just a planet. That IT is the bridge.